Hey YouTubers, another Saw discussion for you guys today, and this is basically something that I've always kind of thought about, and as a huge Saw fan as I have been, and you can excuse me whether I'm actually forgetting something, for some of the commentary or something where they answered this. I just can't remember. So if they did answer this, please make sure to go to the comment section below and answer this. But right now I'm really just thinking about my memory and everything that I've seen on screen. I'm talking about everything that happened within the movies, not the shooting script, not any other edits or something, but the stuff that we got on screen for, basically the theatrical cuts. But at the same time, I guess any of the home releases, because I've also really watched those a lot as well. So when it comes to plot holes in the series, and I'm understanding that, yes, there's a ton of plot holes when it comes to Saw as a series or Saw in general, it's not necessarily the best written story, but I've always kind of chalked a lot of this up to, it was just really well, hamstrung written year to year. They basically treated this like each movie was in a season to a show for that part. Like they would just kind of come up with a concept and just kind of make the film as fast as they possibly could. And it's actually quite intriguing that it's actually just as cohesive as it actually is, but at the same time, like I said, there's still plot holes here and there and retcons and everything that kind of make everything make sense, and no more so apparent than Saw 3D. But at the same time, I just wanted to talk about this particular plot hole that I consider the biggest plot hole in the entire series. And to basically talk about this, we have to go back all the way to Saw 3 and Saw 4. And a lot of people don't like Saw 4. I happen to think that a lot of people don't like Saw 4 because when they first saw it, they didn't necessarily understand what was going on, just because when it comes to Saw, there's always these twists at the ending, and not everything is what you saw, basically, so hence the name. But at the same time, Saw 4 was kind of a new direction for the series, not only because it had to pick up after Saw 3, but it also decided to tell like a story that was taking place during the same time as Saw 3. And a lot of people didn't necessarily pick up on that. I mean, hats off to you if you were one of the people who really picked up on that the first time you watched it, or maybe even any of the other times. But I really feel like a lot of people didn't necessarily understand that. But with that, and because of the way they had to basically structure it the way they did, and they have to keep that secret for most of the film, we ran into a huge plot hole. So if you remember correctly, at the very beginning of Saw 4, and at the very beginning of Saw 3, actually, at the very beginning of Saw 3, we actually have, Troy in the schoolroom in the chain trap with the nail bombs, with the shut door, and he basically dies. He can't necessarily get through. Even if he did get all the chains off of him, the door was welded shut, and there was no way that he was ever going to be able to get out of there. And they kind of made that very clear. And so when the police comes and they basically destroy the entire door in order to get through the door and investigate the scene, we have this scene between Rig and Kerry basically talking about, how did Jigsaw do all this? The last time we saw him, he was damn near well on his deathbed, and there's no way that he could have done this. So it's pretty heavily implied that Amanda Young isn't necessarily understood to be an apprentice of John Kramer at that time. And that's really important because not only is Hoffman in the background of that particular scene, and we know, based on everything that happened throughout all the other films, we know just how important Hoffman became to the legacy of Jigsaw and all of the stuff that was happening, in the last 4 films of the series. But at the same time, it's very clear that the police, at least the two people that we know who have been on this case for a very long time, had no idea who Amanda was or how she played into the entire Jigsaw legacy. But at the same time, if you break down what the events that happened in Saw 4 and how they had to basically hide that huge twist at the end, they made a massive plot hole. What we see in Saw 3 is Amanda or someone hoists Kerry up, Detective Kerry up, and puts her in the angel trap. She dies. Jump cut to Saw 4, where Hoffman and Rig are basically trying to find Kerry. They find Kerry through the robot, and Rig jumps in. They could basically confirm this, and then Peter Strahm and Perez come. That's Kerrys Liaison. We had this connection with Detective Kerry, and she was basically feeding us information as we were watching this very closely as it was going on. By the way, someone's helping Jigsaw, and then given everything that we know about Hoffman, but Hoffman's Amanda Young, and then Peter Strahm goes, no, Amanda Young was some odd pounds, she couldn't necessarily get Detective Kerry up there. John Kramer could have created a pulley. Well, no, he couldn't have done that because he was damn near on his deathbed or something else. There was a muscle here. There's someone else helping them. And the problem with this particular scene, when you kind of pick apart the timeline that was happening between Carrie's death and Troy's accident or Troy's trap, when did they figure out that Amanda was helping him? Because it was very clear that they didn't necessarily know anything about Amanda, or that John Kramer had any type of outside help during that particular scene when Troy was going through the toy, or the classroom trap with the chains and everything like that. And if you want to sit there and be like, well, no, like months or weeks went by or something like that, that's not necessarily true, because as Saw 4 basically goes on, the classroom trap that happens in Saw 4 takes place in the same school that Troy was basically in. So if you go back and watch that, when Troy's coming in and he goes to find the woman who's basically pulled out all the metal pipes from her and basically killing her husband, and the guy who is physically abusing children, you could see as he enters that room, you could see the room is still taped off where Troy's trap was for the police investigation team or something. So it's indicated that only took place mere days or mere hours after they found Troy to begin with. So who leaked the fact that Amanda was basically helping John this entire time, and for what reason? And the only real indication we ever got from that on screen was in Saw 5, when we have this, I guess, flashback when it comes to John Kramer and Mark Hoffman basically talking in the sick room of Saw 3 and Saw 4, and then Saw 5, whenever, like, every time they're in that sick room, and he's talking to him about, like, the greatest gift I've given to you is anonymity, and when, like, Amanda doesn't have that, nobody else has that, like, you're going to be able to operate outside of this because no one knows who you are. And I definitely think that that's the only indication that we ever got that he didn't necessarily afford that to Amanda. But it's just always been very interesting to me, and it's just strange that for whatever reason her involvement with this was leaked and just widespread known within a matter of a couple days, and there's been no indication of whether or not that was actually possible, or whether or not that was actually part of the major plot. And personally, I've always considered it a huge plot hole, because it was one of those things that they had to basically throw in there to throw everyone off the trail that Saw 4 and Saw 3 were happening at the exact same time. Because if they didn't necessarily mention that, given the fact that Saw 3 ended the way it did, then a lot of people might have actually sniffed out the twist before that actually happened, like, let alone whether you did or not. I know I didn't when I first saw it in 2007. So, I mean, that's just always something that's really bugged me, and I've never been able to figure out exactly why that actually happened, or how that could have been resolved in any way, shape, or form. And if you guys have figured out a way that has that, like, basically, have you figured out a way to make sense of that line from Peter Strahm, as whether or not, or even like Mark Hoffman, like whether or not, like, how they knew Amanda Young was basically helping him, given the fact that they said something in Saw 3 and then said something just mere hours or mere even days later, maybe even just like a day later when they find Carrie and all this stuff that happened, like whether or not how they figured out that Amanda Young was still, or even just a part of all of this, when they didn't know just so much earlier. And I've always felt like that was a huge plot hole that they really need to kind of figure out how to tell one way or the other. But I wanted to kind of open myself up and say, like, yeah, I don't necessarily understand that. I do believe that's the biggest plot hole for the entire series, just something I've never been able to wrap my mind around. And even though, House of Jigsaw is gone and all this other stuff, I know we talked about this stuff in the past. So if you were on the the boards or something, and you said something, or you had some kind of a theory, or you have some kind of a theory now, then I'm reaching out to every single person in the Saw community right now to tell me why this makes sense, how it makes sense, and how it should have been played. Even if it comes with a bunch of headcanon, I don't care. Just make me understand this thing right now, because that's the one thing I really want to understand. I've tried so hard to make a lot of this series make sense, and I've succeeded for the most part besides this. So if you guys can consider like a way that this makes sense in your head, go down in the comment section below and tell me what you think. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. for more content, more Saw content going forward. If you like these videos, please make sure to support them and share them out to all your friends. And don't forget to click that bell next to the subscriber button so you know exactly when I'm posting videos, especially Saw videos, and you're going to want to watch those more in the future. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave y'all out. I'm going to just leave y'all with that. Please make sure, like I said, share your opinions. Anyway,